guys, welcome back to how to build a modular layout from start to finish. Today we're talking about wiring, both the wiring on the track and the wiring diagrams. So with that said, let's get started on how to build a modular layout from start to finish, the wiring portion right now.
As you can see, we're on my laptop here. A mistake I made last time on the how to build a layout series was just showing you a quick glance at the wiring diagram. Now I'm going to blow it up to full screen so you can really see it here. Now, you can ignore these questions. These were questions I had back when I first did this in 2011, but now it's a lot easier to understand. The most important principle you have to keep in mind is you need to keep your outer rail separate from your inner rail, whether that's you have one main line, two main lines, three main lines, whatever's going on. Outer rail must be distinguished separately from inner rail. In this case, you have the outer rail is orange, the inner rail is blue. So if you want to color code those outer and inner rails with whatever wiring you want to use, you can do so. I have used multiple colors just because I wasn't in a big hurry or didn't want to waste wire just to get the same type of colors. But just mark it down somewhere that the outer rail has to be separated from the inner rail. Now, these things you see here are known as barrier strips, terminal joiners. They've got a couple different names. They are, the ones I have are from Radio Shack, but Radio Shack has liquidated almost everything they have online in terms of these, so you may have to find alternatives on eBay and other places. So here you see this line here, and this is a jumper. I will show you that in detail when we go under the layout. But as you see, this is a 8-position dual row barrier strip. There's 8 positions on each row. Now 4 of the positions are going to be the inner rail and 4 are going to be the outer rail. And then you've got a 2-position dual row jumper or barrier strip here. And the reason you have these is you're going to have some connections for modules that you can easily disconnect. So I hope you're following right now, but you can save a picture of this by blowing it up full screen on YouTube. But this is how the underside of your layout should look. Now once you get over here, you've got the 2 position, then you branch off to another 2 position and make sure that you're leading out into your DCC system with an outer rail and an inner rail line. So let's go to the next image. This now includes the DCC system, and it also shows where you want to put spade connectors. Spade connectors are those little pitchfork looking connections that you would have to crimp onto the wires, and that just makes for an easy separation from the actual barrier strip and also makes it easy to connect. So I don't have spade connectors on the layout that I'm going to show you yet, but I will show you where they would go. This is the DCC system. You would have 2 inputs, one for each rail on your DCC system. So this is basic wiring. You can see how this orange here is on the outer rail of this track and the outer rail of that track and vice versa. So that just kind of shows you. Now this is looking from above the layout now. So say this is a double line, double main line. You have the outer rail, and that is now connecting to one side of the barrier strip. You never want to have the outer and inner connecting to the same side. That'll cause what's known as a short. So you want them separated. And then you can run the bus lines, which are these lines right here, to from terminal block or barrier strip to barrier strip. So that's how that works. A little complicated, but I think if you pause and really look at the diagram, you'll understand. Now, one other thing I'm going to show you is really just an advanced piece. It's how to handle the yard, which I haven't even done yet. So this is the yard, and it has toggle switches to power the yard, and rail joiners that are isolating rail joiners, which are insulating rail joiners, which are basically just plastic rail joiners, which means there's no electric current getting through to separate and power district off the yard. So I'm not going to explain this much. I'm just going to let you take a look. It shows you how to wire a switch, a 3-pole switch, an on-off switch so you can apply power, but all the other principles still apply. You got to keep your rails separate, etc. And now these jumpers here, these 3 and 4 position jumpers that you have, actually carry the current to the rest of the terminal blocks on that side of the barrier strip. So overall, I'm really not going to go into detail, but if you have questions, feel free to ask. Again, my my email address is on the For Business Inquiries Only page of the YouTube. I don't know why it says For Business Inquiries Only. It's for anybody to contact me, but I will see if I can change that somehow. But clicking on that link on my YouTube page, I think on the About section, will get you an email link so you can get a hold of me. It is jlwreviews@gmail.com if you just want a short, quick way to do so. All right, now that we've done that, it's time to take a nice look at this Nebraska scene here, and then we're going to go under the layout to show you how the actual diagram matches up with what's going on under the layout.
So as you see here, we have the bus line. We are working our way in between the modules. I have yet to actually add the 2 position barrier strips, but here you see the 4 position, or I mean 8 pole dual row barrier strip. Now this is the bus line. Now you can color code that however you want. In this case, I've got the outer rail is black and the inner rail is red. Okay, so I've got a lot of work to do on the wiring. This is just the basic setup to show you what's going on. Now these are jumper strips, and these actual jumpers will carry the power further. And if you want to make your own, you just take some wire and wrap it around each one of those past the barriers. But they're called barrier strips because you see barriers keep the electric current separate. I don't have the spade connectors on yet. However, you can see that there's wires, fringing wires, and you really want to use those spade connectors. But even this barrier is keeping those wires from touching each other, which helps make sure the current stays separate between the outer rails and the inner rails. Now in my case, because I'm cheap, I used these 2 wires, outer and inner, the darker and the lighter. For darker was outer and the lighter of the 2 was inner. So even though they're different colors, I was able to use, darker outer, lighter inner. You can set a theme like that and that will kind of work. And then your bus line continues on down, which as you can see, I've got work to do. I got the basic wiring just hooked up to see, how it's working, but it's all looped up and it needs to actually be routed correctly. We need to add spade connectors. I need to add a lot of things. Now when you go up top here, you can see where the feeder wires are actually kind of tucked under the rail. As I showed you earlier, they are soldered to the bottom of those micro engineering code 80 N-scale rail joiners, which are small and discreet, and so the wire is not as evident. On my last layout, the wires were coming way out here. It was way harder to cover up. So let's look real quickly at the ESU Ecos, which is a DCC controller. Any DCC controller has these 2 position blocks, or most of them do. You have to have 2 positions, again, outer rail and inner rail, to connect to the DCC controller. You've got the main track output and the programming track. So you plug this into the main track, and then what you have is also the programming track, which is simply you would plug the 2 wires up and solder them to an outer and inner rail for the programming track, or you could do that and put an isolated rail joiner so it could be incorporated into your layout. But very simple. All DCC controllers have these 2 positions. Let's look at this DCS Commander 2 position blocks, different shapes and stuff, but it's still 2 wires, that outer and that inner. And I actually have, a few different controllers here. They all have that, so it's very simple. You just got to make sure that once it's the wires going out from this controller or these controllers, that you're keeping it separate all the way around your entire layout. And that is the basis of just mainline wiring. I hope that better explains wiring. Wiring is very hard to understand sometimes if you're not an electronic mind frame. So if you have any questions, just shoot me a message on my YouTube page. There's a email address that you can find that says for business inquiries. I don't know why it says that. It's something YouTube puts in, but it's for anybody to contact me about questions. So feel free to do that at any time if you have questions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on my channel. Take care.